The next section we are going to talk about is the ECATS core plan. The core plan in ECATS can be created for a grade level or multiple grade levels in a school as opposed to the class level. It has its own page in ECATS but leverages data from the early warning system. It contains processes for plan creation as well as review and produces a document. To access the core plan, click on the downward arrow next to Admin and select Core Plan. So up here at the top, you'll see the Admin tab. When I hover over it, I get some different options. I'm going to click on Core Plan. The next thing it's going to ask you to do is to choose the select school. So what school are you working in? Once I do that, I have a list of any existing core plans, which you likely will not have any, but these are some core plans that I had created previously. So you're able to see that I'm able to review a core plan that was already created. I could continue a core plan that was not yet finished. And I'm also able to print a document by clicking on the document name here that's underlined in the document column. For our purposes today, we're going to click on Build Core Plan. That's what we want to show you how to do. So click on Build Core Plan. And remember, I'm going to walk through this first, and then I'll do it a second time, and you can do it with me. The next thing I'm going to do is choose the meeting date and meeting purpose. So this is going to be an initial meeting. And then I'm going to choose the staff who's going to be involved in creating the core plan. Click Save and Continue. The next thing you'll do is identify the grade level for which you're creating a core plan. I'll choose 4th grade. And now you can see that it has brought in the early warning system information to let me know whether or not students are meeting grade level expectations through core instruction alone. And it looks like only 57% are in the area of math. So I'll create a goal in that area. So I might say that my goal is to get that up to 84%. And I will identify a date in which I would like to see that occur. So perhaps I'm ambitious and think that I can get that to happen by December 31st. Once I have that information in there, I save and continue. Now what you need to include here is looking at the instruction box here that has the I symbol in it. Based on screening data, if core support is not sufficient for most students, and that is described as 80% or more, what are actionable reasons or factors within your control as a school that indicates a high number of students at risk? If core support appears sufficient for most students in an area, move to step 3. So we're going to describe actionable reasons that can be taken. So we're going to say that we feel that 84% of students are not meeting threshold because instruction has focused solely on grade level standards. The MTSS team hypothesizes that with short, explicit lessons on numbers and operations, etc. And it does have spell check. And then you save that information. And then it's going to ask you to reflect on instruction, curriculum, and environment, and what you are going to alter so that more students, or that so you can reach your target of 84% of students meeting expectations through core instruction. So in terms of instruction, I might say that math teachers in grade 4 will utilize explicit and direct instructional strategies, etc. And then for curriculum, I might say 2 to 5 staff and math specialists will work vertically to utilize the NCS COS unpacking documents, etc. And then in terms of environment, this instruction will occur in a whole group setting. And then it's going to ask what professional development, coaching, or resources are needed to support your commitment to implement the agreed upon plan. And I'm going to say time for math vertical teams. Next, it will ask you what staff should be alerted that the core plan has been created. And then proposed year-long meeting dates for core maintenance. So when will you be meeting? Will you be meeting quarterly, for example, monthly? How often will you be meeting to review your plans? And I'll just put in some fictitious dates here. And then I can go ahead and create my final document. At any time, if you're not ready to finalize your document, you can always just create a draft, or you can save this information and then come back at another time and actually finalize it. I'm going to go ahead and create my final. And now I have my final document right here. 4th grade math was just created. And I can even click on document to get a hard copy of that. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and review this plan. And all I need to do to review a plan is click on review. Now, obviously, you wouldn't do it right away. I'm just doing it right away for training purposes. But to review a plan, what you do is you come in, you would have new data. So let's say that now the second screening window has passed and you have new early warning system data about math. And let's say that this 57% has gone up, and let's say it is now saying 90%, for example. It's going to ask you if you've met your goal, and I would say yes if I had indeed met it, or if that grade level had met it. And then you would indicate what worked. And so you would reflect on those changes that you made to instruction, curriculum, and environment and talk about what worked. I'm just going to say that everything worked. And then you click on Create Final, and that way you've created your final review of that document. All right, now we're going to take some time and do that together. This is the we do part. So this is the fun part where you get to also do it. So I'm going to return to my early warning system page by clicking on the early warning system tab. This is likely where you are. And remember that core plans can be created for grade level or multiple grade levels in a school. And this is opposed to the class level. And it has its own page in ECATS, and it leverages data from the early warning system. And there's a process for creating a plan, reviewing a plan, and producing a document. So in order to access the core plan, if you remember, we're going to go up to this admin tab. So find the admin tab in the upper right-hand side in the dark blue ribbon. And when you hover over it, you'll get some drop-down choices. You're going to click on Core Plan. Once you do that, you'll identify your school. Click on the downward arrow. And you likely won't have existing plans since you haven't created one yet, so it will look a little different for you. But you're going to scroll down and you're going to click on Build Core Plan. It's going to ask you to choose a meeting date. It defaults to today's date, and I'm going to keep that. The next thing it's going to ask you for is meeting purpose. It's either an initial meeting or a plan continuation. I'm going to say it's initial. And then you're going to use these downward arrows to identify staff who's a part of the MTSS team who's creating the core plan. And then you'll click Save and Continue. You'll choose the grade level that you want to create a plan for. And then it's going to give you choices. And it's showing you the early warning system data. I'm going to create a math plan again. So right now I'm at 57%. I'm going to identify a goal. And remember, we want it to be at least 80% of the students are successful through core instruction. I'm going to make my goal, this time I'll make it 90%. And I'll identify a date in the future for when I'd like the goal met. I'd like this met by the end of first semester. And then I'm going to click Save and Continue. It's going to ask me to identify actions that can be taken, or excuse me, I apologize. It's going to ask me to identify reasons why I feel that the students are currently not meeting that 90% threshold that I've established. So this is where you would write in here, for example, instruction has focused solely on grade level, standards, etc. And then you're going to save that information. And then it's going to ask you what you might alter in terms of instruction, curriculum, environment so that more students are successful through core instruction alone. And that's where you would include information here. Around instructional strategies, for example. And you will include how curriculum will be altered. And what will be different about the learning, the environment. And then at the bottom here, you will identify any professional development, coaching, or resources that are needed to support your commitment to the agreed upon plan. And once you've done that, you're going to identify staff that you would like to be alerted that the plan is in place. And you're also going to identify your year-long meeting dates. And once you've done that, I'll actually put in a 4th date. You can create your final document. Go ahead and click on Create Final. And then once you do that, you should now see it listed at the top of your page, 4th grade. For my example, it was 4th grade math, and it was created today. And I could review this document at a later time, just as I showed you previously, by simply clicking on Review. All right, I'm going to go ahead now and stop there and give you time on your own to create a core plan. So if you go back to the Admin tab and then click on Core Plan, you'll be able to do that on your own.